Everyone, and welcome back to another series of the Challenge Yourself. And in part 1 today we are going to be learning a 3D encapsulated rose and then some little petals on top of the nails. So I'm starting off and I'm using Snow White from CJP. I'm using the one monomer and I'm using their number 2 nail art brush, and I'm just placing the first petal on, taking the little tip of my brush, squiggling it into like a sausage C shape, and then when it goes matte, loses its shine, I'm going to go out and press it out. So again, I'm going to place the bead on, kind of pull it out to each side, and then I put the tip of my brush in the middle of it and roll it out into like a sausage C shape. And then I'm going to put the tip of my brush at the front of that bead and then use the belly of my brush to press down. Now I have sped this up a little bit, so it obviously looks like I'm going a lot faster, but you do have to wait for it to be completely matte. Don't let it be set, but don't do it wet. If it bounces back up at you, it's not ready to mold and you're just going to end up with like a sloppy mess. So again, placing my next petal on, wiggling it out from side to side, then getting the tip of my brush in the middle of that bead and rolling it out into like a sausage C shape, and then placing the tip of my brush at the front of that bead where the bead was placed onto the nail plate, and then pressing out with the belly of my brush to make the petals. So if you do this while this is matte, your brush will also give like definitions in the petals, like lines, and that's what you want. You want it to look as realistic as possible. And then where each kind of gap of the petals on the outside ones have been, I will then come in and do another bead, do the same method again, but in the areas where we've got the gaps from the other petals. So I'm rolling it around, just pulling it back a little bit because I wasn't happy where it was situated, and then I'm just going to take the tip of my brush and just press those petals nice and flat. So again, placing the bead on, pulling it out from side to side, flipping my brush over and coming in with the point of my brush in the centre of that sausage, rolling it out, and then placing the tip of my brush at the front end of that bead and then pressing the rest of that bead out with the belly of my brush. So now we're going to come in with the centre bead, and I'm placing the small bead right smack bang in the middle, and I'm going to leave this to go matte. So I'm not going to start messing with it. I want it to lose its shine, so it's not shiny, it's not wet. So tip my brush, you see I rolled a circle in there and it bounced back, which means it's not ready. Now I'll keep testing it, and when it stops bouncing back, I will then just roll it into a circle, and then as I'm rolling it in a circle, I just chop into it with the tip of my brush to make like a little Swiss roll shape, and then put the very tip of that brush into that little gap and then just flatten out the rest of those petals. As you can see there, it's just made like a little Swiss roll shape, and you can see how thin it is as well because we've really flattened those beads down as we've pressed them out. I'm just going to add some more petals just around the outside because I like to kind of feather them down a little bit and cover the natural nail as well, so underneath, especially if I'm doing like a glass rose, so on top of like a clear nail. So I'm just going to do the same thing again, roll it out, and then just get the tip of my brush right at the front end of that bead and use the belly of the brush to flatten it down. So at this point now, I'm going to come in with a little bit of glitter. I'm going to come up the other side where we have some of that remaining nail bed showing and just feather that down the nail. You want to make like a glass tip on this one. You can fill it up completely with glitter if you want to. You can also do these 3D roses on top of a colour if you want to. It is entirely up to you. So I'm just going to I like to put a little bit down one side, come into the tip, and then I like to do the same glitter just a tiny little bit at the cuticle area as well. And then when that glitter is set in place, we're going to go ahead and cap the nail. So I go ahead with my wet brush with monomer on and just go around all the little cracks and then put a really wet bead of crystal glass so it can soak into all those little nooks and crannies and we're not going to get any dry spots or air bubbles. So that is what I do when I cap all sorts of 3D. So make sure you wet it a little bit with monomer first and then use like a really wet crystal glass layer so that it can really slip into all those little nooks and crannies, and then you can go ahead as normal and fully encapsulate the nail. When you're doing this, however, just be careful not to get too close to the cuticle area when you're actually doing the rose, because then you're going to make it really difficult to encapsulate. So leave a gap before the cuticle so you can cap it nice and well, and you haven't got to come in and obviously get it all over the skin and everything. It would just be a nightmare. So just be mindful where you start placing your rose and just leave a good gap away from the cuticle area. So I'm just going to go ahead and put some colours on these other nails because we are going to do a few different style of roses and flowers. Unfortunately, for some reason, I have verified my account on YouTube to upload longer videos, but it just doesn't allow me to do it from my phone. I wonder if I maybe did it on the laptop, it might, which is something I might give a go whilst I've got a lot of time on my hands, is get the old laptop out and try and do it that way. But anyway, it's going to be in 2 parts. So for this first part, we're going to do the 3D rose you've just watched and the petals on this hand, the trailing petals. Anyway, I did apple shine on that nail and I built it up to the desired thickness because we don't need to cap apple shine. And then I'm coming in on the pinky finger and I'm using, oh gosh, I can't remember the name of it, but it is a stunning glitter mix acrylic from CJP. And I don't know if it's called, oh, I don't know, I can't remember, but I do the thin layer of that and then I encapsulate that in crystal glass, and then I'm coming onto the index finger and I'm just doing a thin layer of black magic. So just tapping it into the cuticle area, tapping over through the side and swiping down to get a nice coverage without building up any sort of thickness on the nail. So let's start our floating petals. So I'm going to start off, place my bead on, allow it to go matte. I'm just playing with it, getting it into a circle shape, leaving it to go matte. And then I come in, the tip of my brush in the same position so it flattens out and blends in the front of that bead and presses out the petal on the back of the bead. So I'm just going to do a simple 3-petal flower on this one. And then we're going to let the petals float down the nail. So again, placing it on, getting it into like the circle shape, getting the tip of my brush right in there to blend the front of that bead and then press out the petals. So with the centre bead, I'm coming in, placing my bead on, letting it go matte, and then I'm just getting the tip of my brush, pressing into it, making sure it doesn't bounce back at me. And when it does start to stay in place, I'll just roll my brush around in like a little, swirl it round into a little circle and then leave it. So we're not going to make any like swirly ones on this. It's going to be very simple, basic. And then I'm just going to do the same process down the nail and up the nail just to make those lovely floating petals to kind of bring the whole design together. This is super effective as well, especially when you use the same colours. So if you do like a green nail and then green flowers, it just makes it look so nice. I really love this effect. I don't do it enough really, but now that we're in lockdown, I think there's no better time to get practicing the 3D. Excuse me. I am by no means the best at all. There is lots of improvement for me to make. I am trying, but this is just simple steps that you can take to be on your path to practicing your 3D work. When that final petal is placed and I'm happy with how far the petals have come down, I will just pull it out to make more like a leaf shape. So not quite round, but with a little bit of a point on, just to kind of finish it off. And then I will top coat these nails, but obviously that is in part 2 of the video, but I do show you a finished clip now at the end of those 2 that we completed. And I'll look forward to seeing you in video number 2.